contraptionating. Are we live? I think we're live. What's happening, everybody? Everybody's having a fantastic, whatever day you're watching this. So, want to do a quick show for you guys tonight, kind of running around, getting the car cleaned up, also getting some tires ready to bring you guys some tire testing. So we're going to do a bit of a product test here, probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how weather goes and all of this other stuff. I'll get to that in a second, but looking forward to getting you guys some test data on some tires. And I know that tires rarely comes up on the show. What's up, Marco? Tires didn't usually come up on the show, but it's something that we kind of need to address as far as testing goes. It's a product that I don't really and haven't really tested since I tested the Nitto Tri-5R drag radials. So what gives? Why the testing? Well, one of the things about these cars is that whether you've got a 5.7, a 6.4, Hellcat, Red Eye, whatever, it's actually kind of hard to find a tire that will work and that will be safe in terms of traction, work in the rain, and do a little bit of everything and not break the bank in the process. It's kind of something that I had kind of ticking around in my head. Speed Freak brings up a good point. And one of the reasons why I started looking into tires. So here's the deal. Mickey Thompson ET Street SS, phenomenal tire. But the problem is that they're a little hard to come by and they're very expensive. Not to mention, not very good in the wet. If you decided you wanted to go with the Nitto, you got the NT05 and the Tri-5R. The problem with those two tires is that the Tri-5R, well, let me get to the Tri-5R in a minute. NT05, really good tire, but again, it's pricey. One of the good things about the NT05 as a drag radial is that it typically comes in sizes that fit 10.5-inch wide wheels very well. Whereas the Tri-5R, a little bit different story. Tri-5R is actually, if you spec the tire, it's actually more like a small 315 than it is a 305. But that's beside the point, rubbing issues also aside, because if you've got a Challenger, that can be the case. But let's say you're running the stock size tire, or stock size rim, rather. What are some options that you can run, and what are some options that other guys are running? And again, with the Tri-5R, it works pretty good as a drag radial, but it really works better as a summer tire, to be honest with you. I mean, it's not as sticky as the Mickey Thompson, and although I have gone deep into the nines on NT05s, I really haven't had quite the success with the Tri-5R. So, what do? Well, we got to find a tire that starts to check some boxes, if you will. Clicks off on some of the finer points. It's got to be relatively inexpensive. That's kind of the first thing right out of the box. It's got to be relatively sticky. That's number 2. It's got to be readily available, which is something that the Mickey Thompsons aren't. And although the Nittos seem to be able to be had, again, I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of Nitto since the regular Tri-5R went away. So anyway, getting back to it. The tires have got to be real world capable tires. So what did I end up going with? Well, if your first thought was to think a Turo tire, you're 100% correct. In fact, the Turo AZ850DR, the drag radial, was my first go-to tire to look at. The problem with the Turo AZ850DR is that their 305/35/20, because I want to run these on 10.5-inch wide wheels, I don't know why this is, but it specs short, real short, as a matter of fact. In other words, it's not set up for a Hellcat with a set of stock front 275/40s up front with the 305/35s in the rear. It's more like if you had a Scat Pack with the stock 245/45s up front. They're incredibly short, won't work for my application. The second thing is that with the Atturo tire, is that they don't really make a size that'll fit on a 10.5-inch wide wheel. The next size up is a 315/35, and that size tire will not fit on my car. I know that there's guys that are running 315s. The issue is that I'm running a set of Demon replica wheels. Demon replica wheels are a 25 offset, not a 23 and not a 21. And I want it to stay, the tire, the side of the tire, I don't want it bulging out. I'm not a big fan of that. So, where else can you go? We're not going to be doing a Nitto because I already did that. And Mickey Thompson's completely out of the question, not only because of cost and availability, but this is probably more to the point with Mickey Thompson. A lot of folks have been having quality control issues with those things lately. And I hate to be the guy that brings it up, but I don't want to get stuck in that kind of a tornado that I was stuck in with a set of ET Street R's that I had to return because of core shift. Hated to have to do that. So that's where we're at with all this. So what did I go with? Well, I went with a set of Falken, a Xena. What are these things? 510, some kind of shit. Hang on. They are the Falken Zenus FK510s in the size of 295/40/20. So let me tell you the reason why I went with the Falkens. It's kind of an interesting tire, and I've been doing quite a bit of research into this leading up to me picking up this set of Falkens. But why would I go with these things? Well, what I want to show you guys, and it'll be more apparent when I start to do the actual testing, the Falken actually fits, the 295/40 fits a 10.5-inch wheel extremely well. As a matter of fact, it has the same profile. If you look over here, those are the stock fronts. That's actually a set of Atturos on the front. You notice how it comes right off the rim and just kind of arcs over, real good transition. These do the exact same thing. In fact, it's an identical profile on a 10.5-inch wheel. So in other words, a consistent, very good contact patch. But that's not the whole reason or the whole story at all by a long shot. I wanted to go with 295/40s because they fit the wheel well better, and I wanted to go with a tire that had a low enough wear rating where I knew it would still stick, but I also wanted to have something that would at least work well as a normal tire, something I can get real world results with. And strangely enough, in every comparison that I looked at, not that I drive my car in the rain, but these Xenas did incredibly well. They ranked always better than the competition in wet traction. This got me to thinking, well, if it's a really good wet traction tire, it's a 300 wear rating. By the way, a drag radial is a 100 wear rating, so not that far off. And when you're looking at wear ratings, drag radial is 100. These types of tires, which you would consider to be a high-performance summer tire, a regular just kind of driving around all-season performance tire will be 400, like the Pirelli P0 all-season is a 400. And then something more like a higher mileage might be 500 or 600 or 800 wear rating. So that'll give you an idea as far as the kind of the stickiness of the tire. But to keep going, really good wet weather reviews on this tire. And it's one of the lightest tires in the group, checking in at about 31 pounds each, whereas seemingly every other tire that I was looking at was a 37 pounder. And it's actually pretty apparent when you check and you pick up the rear, the larger tire right here actually feels lighter. I haven't weighed them, but than the 275/40s that are in stock, the Atturo AZ850. So I'm really looking forward to bringing you this info. I'm going to be playing around with the car. I'm not worried about 0 to 60. It's even with the Nitto drag radial, 0 to 60 was a waste of my life. just because the car would light the tires up, but my car will light the tires up just partial throttle acceleration. Sounds kind of fun until it isn't, because it just becomes more annoying. So I'm going to play around with it in 500 horse mode, all the sauce mode. I'm just going to have some fun with these tires. And I guess one of the main reasons why I'm doing this is, well, after this season, and this season really doesn't have that much more time left in it, really about a month and a half. And if the weather keeps acting the way that it's acting, we may only have 1 or 2 weekends left this year to play over at Houston Raceway Park. The Hellcat's getting retired, and it's getting retired mainly because I just don't feel like beating the hell out of that car anymore. It needs to be an automobile, and so I'm going to do the mods to kill the ability to have a key in it. Probably I'll put a kill switch in it somewhere. Do a couple of other mods just to safeten the thing up, and it's going to be a car. So let me get to you guys real quick, and let me see. Marco's first in. Guitar Man's in. What's up? Sovereign is in. Chuck Rice, what's up, my man? Is in. Red Dog saying, subby. Speed Freak, yeah, Santa here. Drag rails still hard to find. They are. Red Dog saying Firestone Indy 500s. Didn't really look that far into those. I was looking for more of a tire that would be a bit more affordable, something in that $250 to $300 range. Ryan is in saying, "What's up, Professor?" Marco is in saying, "I'm going to grab a Jeep SRT. What do you think?" I like them a lot. I like them a whole lot. As a matter of fact, if I could find one myself, I'd grab one. John saying Mickey's sway quite a bit on the street and poor handling. You know, it's funny. I ran Mickey Thompson ET Street R's and ET Street SS's exclusively for a long time. In fact, on my Corvette, I ran ET Street R's everywhere, and the ET Street SS. And as long as you've got air pressure in them, like a proper amount of air pressure, I never had, although I will admit, I got so used to it that it wouldn't make me skittish. So, but I didn't notice it being super bad. But the Nittos were a bit more stable than the Mickeys at speed. And when I say at speed, we're talking 130 to say 150, 160-ish. They were always a little bit more stable from my estimation. So definitely right on that. Just asking, who will win in a race? A stock C7 Z06 or a normal stock 707 Hellcat in roll races and in drag race? Drag race is not even close. If they're both on a tire, the Hellcat will walk right, just clean out of that Corvette's life. And I know it because I've driven both cars and I've raced both cars. So there's that. In fact, a fun fact, as a matter of fact, a really good race that I would find myself tangled up in. There was a guy down here that had a modified, it was pulleyed, no cam though, so stock cam on drag radials, automatic car, don't know who tuned it, with a couple of other small things. It was like a really good running entry-level hot rod that would run against my 309 geared stock boost Hellcat. And I was always quicker than that car by about a tenth and about a mile an hour. But every once in a while, that car would just kind of pull a mile an hour out of its ass. It was weird because the last time we were at the track at the same time, we never got a chance to run each other. But we would compare time slips, and it was like clockwork, just a shade quicker than that vet, but very quick. So there's that. Now from a roll, I'd have to give the nod to the vet, especially if you're going to go watt at, say, 65 miles an hour, and let's say both cars are on a tire. The vet on a watt 4.3 downshift is going to be pretty nasty. So the vet would probably get the jump and would hold it there on the Hellcat, would be my guess. But C7Z06, one of my all-time very, very much favorite cars to drive. Not only because it runs really good, it's got a very fun, very workable power-to-weight ratio, but the ergonomics in that car, so good. Love that car. Speed Freak's asking if I'd ever go with a set of bead locks or just weld wheels. I'm not at a power level that would allow me to need bead locks. Not my thing. Although they're on the car. Although I do walk the rim inside the tire pretty much like you wouldn't believe. Someone saying nice wheels. They are demon replicas is what they are. So that is what they are. And if you're wondering what the tape is, that masking tape, the painter's tape, I always go in and I always paint a flat black paint the weights on my wheels. So it's just kind of a thing that I've always done. And to do that, you need to, tape everything up, mask it off. So everything's just kind of drying right now. Like saying, what up, Professor B? Sorry, saying, look at the water channels. Yeah. So again, the big deal with these tires is their main claim to fame is that they're just really, really good in the wet. Not that I'm driving my car in the wet, but I thought it would be interesting to get a tire that is known for wet weather performance and just see how it acts in general. And again, this tire, it's an asymmetrical tire, by the way. And again, I'll be showing a lot more of this in the video when I make it. But it is very similar. The pattern on this thing is kind of the way all of these tires are, these asymmetrical tires. Which is kind of funny because they're all basically clones of each other. So when you look at like a set of Pilot Sport 3s, I forget all of them that are like this. When just asymmetrical tire, they all have a variation of this exact same tread pattern, which I thought was kind of funny in a way. Another thing about asymmetrical tires, I'll get to this in that video too. They're asymmetrical side to side too. They have to be. So for this tire, if I were to run this one, because it's either way, if I were to run this one on the passenger side, the sipes would actually kind of go up to the front. They basically go inside and up and curve. Whereas the way that it would see the road, it would be forward. It would be the exact opposite, right? So in this case, they come forward, and in that case, they would be rocking backwards. And it's kind of funny. You look at it and go, oh my God, it's not the right tire. No, it is. The direction of the channel makes literally no difference, especially on this face. The fact that it just has a channel is all you're worried about. You cannot have an asymmetrical tire that is going to be symmetrical on both sides of the car because you can't have flat lines. And this is something I'll talk about, but if these were to be straight across and the tires were symmetrical side to side, they would howl. You have to have those things, kind of like bevel cut gears in a car versus straight cut gears. Same exact idea. And if you were to have a flat open bar going any direction on a tire, it'll make them howl like crazy. So it's something that you will never notice. It's only like a nerd like me that would see that and go, it's not only asymmetrical tire, but it's asymmetrical side to side, and that's the reason why. Doesn't affect anything in a negative way. The legit, talking about the trunk water. Do you have a trunk water problem with your Challenger? When you wash it, I always have to pick the trunk up and down and empty the water, or have to drive around until water comes completely out. I took 2 of the little rubber plugs out of mine. And what I'll do is, I know exactly what you're talking about, and yeah, everybody does. In fact, some guys will go so far as to drill little holes in it because of how the thing channels. But I took there's 2 little stoppers underneath there. I took those out, and I will actually take a leaf blower and blow air through there to blow all the water out. But yes, you got to do the open and close thing for sure. Chuck saying, I drive my Scatty 7 months out of the year here in Vermont. I am looking at 275 4020s this spring. Haven't figured out which brand yet, but all seasons only for me. Absolutely. And the Pirellis are not necessarily all that bad. Again, a 400 tread wear rating is pretty low for an all-season tire. Legit's asking, does it take a lot of money to have a Scat Pack at Hellcat Power? What do I need to do? Trade it in on a Hellcat. That's the best money that you'll ever spend, is to buy a Hellcat. It's not just the power. It's everything that engine is attached to. The transmission primarily is what we're talking about with the HP90, which is a far and away better transmission than the HP70. I mean, damn, that alone is worth the money to upgrade to just buy the Hellcat. It's also how the Hellcat makes power. It's a very rich driving experience. You go trying to hot rod a 392 to make Hellcat power, you can definitely do it. We've done it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. I mean, we've got so many high horsepower 392s that, I mean, it's just next. The problem is, to get the real kind of power that you get out of a Hellcat, it's just not dollars and cents worth it. So I'll put it to you like this. Stock 392 car will make somewhere right around 400 horsepower to the rear wheels. And a stock Hellcat will make, on a Mustang dyno, okay? A stock Hellcat will make just this side of 600 horsepower to the rear wheels on the same dyno. That's 200 horsepower. The way I used to tell guys is power comes at about a rate, for these Mopars at least, and for a lot of other cars too, but the power comes at a rate of about $100 per horsepower, not including transmission upgrades. So for another 20 grand, you can have the Hellcat and all the power that you wanted, have the transmission, and here's the coolest thing about the Hellcat. It's got a black key. You can drive it around in 500 horse mode, or just put the thing in 500 horse mode if you like. I do that regularly, and the car feels like it's got just a big, like a 426 that's just a mild 426. Very torquey, not a lot of horsepower, but super torquey. That's how the car drives in 500 horse mode. It's two cars in one. Now, granted, you can't do any transmission adjustments or anything like that when it's in 500 horse mode. You don't need to. You don't have to. It's great just the way it comes. That would be my suggestion. In essence, you get your Scat Pack and you get a Hellcat. Actually, you get a Scat Pack with like a stroker motor, and you get a Hellcat all in one car. It's like the best of both worlds. Why wouldn't you do that? Plus, again, it's just too much coin, man. Hey, Tad's checking in saying, got a new truck today. Got a Ram 1500 4x4 Hemi Warlock. Awesome. Good truck, by the way. Came real close to buying one of those. Congratulations, Tad. Warlock's pretty neat. They come stock with 392 gears. A really good truck. Speed's asking, if I retire the Hellcat, what will you race next to play with? I don't know that I'll necessarily be racing, but I will probably drag Foxy out of mothballs and get back into autocross if I do anything. And Chuck saying, I took B's advice and got a Scatty instead of modding my shaker. Yeah, that's the best way to go. And listen, the good thing is, if you have a Scat Pack, you've got all the usable power that you could. I mean, you can use all the power that you bought, right? You can't do that with a Hellcat, and that's just real talk. I can tell you over and over and over again how many times that, you know, I'll drive my car in 500 horse mode, and then I'll drive it in 707 mode, which is to say, you know, throwing everything at it. And to be honest with you guys, it's kind of more, in a way, it's more fun driving it around in 500 horse mode, mainly because if you're in 700 horse mode and you're in it to win it, even with the drag, I got the drag radials right over there. There's just not, how do I say this without sounding like an ass? There's not a lot separating the two. I like, there is from a power standpoint, but not from an entertainment standpoint. By the way, have y'all ever wondered how, like, why is it that drag radials are so dangerous? Hang on, let me grab this for you. I'm going to show y'all something. So check this out. One of the funny things about drag radials is that the tread depth is very, very shallow. These are my Tri-5Rs, and these R2s, I should say. The funny thing about these tires is that they don't have hardly any miles on them, and they have hardly any wear on them. And look at how shallow the tread is. I mean, there's still tread depth there, right? But can y'all tell? I mean, it's just crazy. One of the things that I've always made fun of, or I laugh about, is, as compared to this, by the way. I mean, this. I mean, look at the tread depth, right? When I first got, first time you ever get these drag radials, it's kind of funny because, like, damn, it's like you just bought used tires. Oh, Tad's liking his Indy 500s on the 392 Daytona. Consistent 390 to 60. Nice. I have a feeling these are going to be pretty good. The damn Skeeter. How can it be? I got a Skeeter floating around. It's January. These things are supposed to be dead. Where'd that damn thing go? I get him? Didn't get him. The weather down here is nuts. It'll be 30 degrees one day. It can be 30-something degrees in the morning and be 80 degrees in the afternoon. It ain't no accounting for jacked up weather down here this year. It's crazy. Chuck's saying new Hellcats are ridiculously overpriced. Yeah, they are. BB's saying, hey B, what's the best performance tire for traction on a 20-inch wheel? I've got NT 555 G2s, and my Cam 6.1 cannot get traction even at 30 pounds of air pressure. So here's the thing. What you're working with is a summer tire. It's got a tread wear rating of 320, 340, something like that. I'm going to be trying these Falkens with a Zenus FK510. What is this thing? Hang on. Yeah, the FK510 Falken Zenus. Probably going to be a little bit better. But the thing is, you've got a hot motor. It's going to be tough to hook them up. If you're okay running a drag radial, you might try the Tri-5 R2 version of the tire that you have. You might see a slight improvement in traction, but if you drive the thing a lot, you're going to be up against a problem if you get the thing out in the wet. So, I don't know. Give the Zenus a shot. Give those Falkens. Maybe that might be the right tire for you. I don't know. I'm looking forward to getting them on the car though, because it's gonna be kind of a cool comparison, I think. Server saying, yeah, great idea. Carson said, hey, be checking in. I thought I was the only one OCD enough to paint my weights. Dude, it drives me nuts. And so, and the other thing that you'll notice is that you will see no residue back here from the old weights. See how clean that is? No residue. Only the tape part. It drives me absolutely bananas to have old weight tape residue on my wheels. It is a major issue. The guys can tear my rims up completely, getting the weights off, but there's still that residue sitting there. It drives me absolutely nuts. So yes, get the adhesive remover. I'll get in there and dab it just right. Make sure everything's, nice and clean when I do it. But yeah, I get all of that stuff off the rim, clean it up, tape it off, and get them painted. Rift is in. What's up, man? Legit saying, if you had a choice to pick the color of your Hellcat, what color would you have picked other than red? So, white knuckle was on the top of the list. And then there was I forget the name of it, the pearl metallic, which is the one that I would have bought if I was buying one in 2015 or 2016. It was only a 1 or 2 year color. And I came this close to buying an SRT that was that color. But if not in those colors, then I would go with the dark gray. Would be the next. In fact, what's the actual name of that thing? I've got one of the window stickers over here. Oh, I don't have it up there. Granite Crystal is the name of that color. Would probably go with that one. But I also like the triple nickel though. Probably Granite Crystal. Chuck saying, how do you street 800 horsepower? I don't race at the track, so my Scat is a street beast. Well, the thing is I mean, you can, and a lot of us have. In fact, okay, so one of the videos I was thinking about doing, it's funny you mentioned that, must have been reading my mind. It was, basically the video is, what's it like to own and drive an 800, 900, 1,000, 1,200 horsepower car? What's it like to live with one of those for any real amount of time? And the reason why I'm saying any real amount of time is because the clock starts ticking the second that any of these cars starts to get modified. And usually, if guys keep the car reasonably, sanely modified, they'll keep them for a nice long time. If not, they typically get rid of them pretty quickly, and there are reasons behind that. So, kind of like one of the typical standalone videos that I would put together. So I've been thinking about putting together something like that, but it's kind of crazy because owning one and living with one is not a lot of fun. It's kind of fun to romanticize the hot rod. You grow up seeing pro street cars and stuff like that. The problem though is that rarely is the chassis ever modified, or first of all designed, but much less modified to be able to manage and handle that kind of power. And so the cars are sketchy to begin with, and it's not a sketchy like you're taming some kind of wild beast. You know, a lot of guys get it in their head that, you know, wow, they're manly or whatever. It's not that. It's dangerous. And a lot of guys don't understand the danger and the level of danger that they can find themselves in by just throwing cubic dollars at a project car and building this thing up only to have some minor thing fail that can end up creating major problems and is a major catastrophe. So anyway, was trying to put that video together today a little bit in my head. Some videos are a lot easier to get through than others. Some topics you would think would be really easy. It's like just pulling bricks through mud. Other times, you know, there are other goofy videos. I just bam, bam, bam. It's a lot of fun, and I just kind of breeze through it. That one's going to be kind of easy to breeze through, but as always, I'll be all over the board. Red Dog's 392 can be as docile as you want and just as violent as you could ever need on the street, which is very true. Red Dog's like an Indy 5s too. Yeah, and that's the thing. So Sovereign saying, talking to Chuck, said be 100% content with 392. That's one of the things that is so difficult for me, is to talk to guys that have 392s that end up wanting more. It's the chasing of the more that always gets you in trouble with these cars. And so, you know, when you have a 392 car and you want to modify it or start to upgrade it, you can do some kind of neat things to those cars. You can do a lot of neat things to those cars. Perform. and get some nice little power jumps out of them, but you are not going to collect large gains hand over fist with any of these modern cars. Even with camshaft swaps and everything else, guys, it's just, I would say that if you're willing to spend that kind of money, then be willing to hold out, save up your cash, and then make the determination then if you need to upgrade to the next series higher. Most of the time, you won't. And that's one of the arguing points that I had way early on, especially when I was working at the shop. I had Shalandra, which was my white SRT 392. And one of the headaches that I had was Hellcat guy. It was always Hellcat guy. And it was always kind of a snobbish thing. And for me, what I was looking at was the driving experience. So I drove everything. I data logged everything. Transmission tuned, especially the second half of working there. I would make adjustments to every car that came out of that shop. I was doing some kind of a transmission adjustment. And it was just funny because you would have Hellcat guys looking down on 392 guys. And I'm just sitting there going, if I drive another Hellcat today, it'll be the 5th or 6th or 8th. And the funniest thing about it, okay, so I got to kind of paint a picture for you. So at that point in time, this is when modifying Hellcats was really taking off quickly. And, you'd have somebody in there, yeah, Hellcat, it's a Hellcat, RAR, whatever. And then one of the other customers would come up that was an early adopter of modification of these things. It'd be kicking out about 1,000 horsepower, and a little bit of humble pie gets served up pretty quickly when those cars would pull up. So kind of interesting, but it's just, when you work at a shop, you deal with everybody, right? But it's easy to get apathetic, especially when it's one of these things where, and I liken it, guys, it's just like when I was a kid, worked at a pizza place, Italian food place, matter of fact, more to the point, but specialized in pizza. And the owner of this restaurant, and I love this guy to death, when he passed, one of the very few times I actually cried because somebody that I wasn't related to passed away. Super awesome dude. Awesome guy. And when I first got hired, he goes, look, you'll never go hungry working for me, nor will your family. You want to take food home? No problem. At the end of the day, gets close to the end of your shift, make whatever you want. Chef it up, box it up, take it home. And it was hysterical because for about a month, it was everything. Manicotti, eggplant, pizza, calzones, grilled up chicken, the whole bit. Didn't matter what it was. I was grilling stuff up left and right, pastas, everything. But after about 2 weeks, I started getting sick of it. And after about a month, I didn't want to even see it anymore. And after 2 months, I'd stop off somewhere else and get something to eat on the way home. But he knew that. He knew that was going to happen. But it was just one of those things where he's such a cool guy. And anyway, it's kind of like that when you work at a performance shop. So somebody comes in raving about the pizza. It's like, yeah, it's badass pizza. I've had it, every day for the last freaking week. I can't get enough of it. And, but it's, I guess what I'm trying to say is when you work at a shop, you see everything and you start to learn what is realistic for reality in terms of performance, real world performance, what compromises that you need to make. And what compromises are just going to be made for you by fate if you're trying to get too aggressive with some of these cars. So anyway, it's a lot of fun when you would have some guys that would come in that, well, how much power can I have? How much horsepower? And you just start, rattling off what different packages would make. And every one of the Hellcat packages was, y'all remember Racer X's Excessive. One of my favorite packages. The problem is the thing would haze the tires at 100 miles an hour and it would haze the tires to 130. It was just, Like, is that streetable? Sure, why not? But it's one of those funny things where every one of those packages was just taking an extreme to another extreme to another extreme. And, where it got to the point where a stock Hellcat was kind of nice to drive around, like, oh, neat, stock gear, stock, nice little tuned package, Hellcat, high 10-second car. Neato, mosquito. They drive great down the highway, get really good gas mileage, as a matter of fact. So, anyway, where was I at with this? Anyway, Chuck saying my Scat Pack's made me shit plenty. I did forget Depends last time out. So I like to see how the Hurricane stacks up to a 392. 100% right there with you on that. If we get a platform that can accommodate it, I'm all in. I'm all ears. Well, just asking, do you think it's easy to remove and replace the door rubber trim on Challengers? It's the same with all cars, pretty much. It's more tedious than anything else. People saying, do you think Dodge could meet cafe standards if their regular cars were pure EVs and they kept big Hemis in the new Chargers and Challengers? See, here's the thing. Yeah, I think that they could, but they would need more offerings that were hybrids and EVs. And I had always said that Dodge failed miserably in one extremely important area, and that was they didn't have a good, reliable small car. Think like an Elantra or something along those lines. The Kia, Hyundai type of a car, they never had anything like that. And it was just a real mess of a situation to find yourself in. And those cars are the ones that would keep the cafe standards super high, which would have been the right way to play it. But Dodge didn't. It was nothing but hot rods, realistically. And, I don't know how it plays out as a brand and how all the cafe rules work, because those things may be more fluid than like set in stone. But yeah, for a brand to only go in that direction, that's a bit of a problem. And it could be that it worked great for one set of rules and then doesn't work at all for a new set of rules. But I've always been of the opinion, somebody's heading out to Velocito this evening. By the way, the weather tonight is amazing, but again, it will change dramatically within the next 12 hours. Anyway, I've always been of the opinion that if you're going to make hot rods, you also need to make fun, very small, very fuel efficient cars. If you can do both, you got a winner and you'll never have to worry about it. But again, that's kind of how it is. I really agree with you, though, that if they could have done something to bump up cafe, that would have been better. But again, it's probably a rules thing. So I'm saying 45 is respectable. I would say very much so. So is that 475 pound-feet of torque. Chuck say I'm plenty satisfied with my Scat, as would I be. Dr. Div Sin saying, what's up? Long time. What's up, man? Hope things are going well. Happy New Year, buddy. Chuck saying, check out my channel to see it. And me jamming. Yeah, check out my man, Rocks Out. Head over to Chuck Rice's channel. SRT saying 392 is perfect. Mopar 8, not too much, not too little. It really is in that that just right spot. Let's see. Doc's checking in with everybody. Chuck said, hanging out with B. HU saying the problem with the 392 is its main asset. The car is pretty well optimized. It's really good from the factory. People with 392 should be enjoying their cars instead of wishing they had a Hellcat. Good point. And I'll say it, and I'll keep saying it. Again, when you've driven the number of these cars that I've driven, one of my key, I don't know if y'all could hear that. That sounded healthy. One of my key complaints that I had about the Hellcat versus the Scat Pack was that The Scat Pack for the first half of the throttle input is markedly more stout feeling, more responsive feeling than the Hellcat is. And that would make sense. If the Hellcat's running around with the bypass open on the blower, you got to remember, it's a smaller engine, significantly less compression ratio. You're talking almost 11 in the 392 versus 9.5 for a 6.2. And it's breathing through a supercharger with runners that are about as long as your thumb is. I mean, there's nothing to them. So they were always a little bit soft, and then factor in the fact that they're also running a 262 gear, and you just had the makings for a car that felt a little bit like you had to really coax it out of its, like it was lazy, it was sleepy. Once it woke up, it was a different story though. You get the thing to boost and it's, whoa, hey, now I know where my money's been spent. But just driving the thing and putting the thing around, it would easily confuse you. Because it didn't feel like the thing about a Hellcat is that it is a stock one, is that it doesn't, the 700 horsepower doesn't translate into a feeling like you would expect it to, especially when you're used to 500 coming from the Scat Pack. Again, you've got a heavier car with the Hellcat. It's more nose heavy, so handling is definitely different, by the way, between the two cars. And so there's some things that you notice straight away with the with the Scat Pack that are not favorable to the Hellcat. So anyway, I was critical of the Hellcat for a long time. And for those reasons. And I personally made the switch because I wanted something that was going to be more durable in general. Not to mention, I found the exact car that I would have ordered if I could have ordered one back in 2015. I mean, the build sheet was like, oh wait, hold on. We know this dude is probably going to buy this car. Yeah, the bald guy. Yeah. Okay, make that car for him. I mean, that's exactly what they did with mine. The suede interior, red seat belts, red line red, early edition 2015, which is funny that it's red line. And what a lot of folks don't get about red line is that it is the prettiest color in person. And in certain pictures, like if you get it in the right light, it's gorgeous. But that car will go from being red line red, deep red, deep red, like an oxblood red at night. But then in pictures or in fluorescent light, it's freaking go mango orange. And it's hysterical. It's like a deeper Hemi orange, like a Tangelo orange. And it's funny because I was taking some pictures of the car in the like right over here in the shop, and it was how the Nitto Tri-5Rs sit in the wheel well, and I'm looking at my car and it's this deep dark red, and the picture is Hemi orange, and it's just how the camera picks up on it. So there's a thumbnail that I'll put together for a live show every once in a while. It's been a long time since I've used it, but it was a picture of my car. And I think it was right after I got through putting the car back together when I put the lightweight front bumper support on it. And the car looks orange. I mean, it is an orange ass picture of that car. It's funny because I'm looking at my car and what the hell, you know? So anyway, yeah, Sovereign saying, speaking of Racer X, yeah, our boy got, and Chuck's got his YouTube channel. Go check that out, guys. Yeah, Racer X came down with a case of with the Rona, it looks like. So our boy is going to be down for just a little bit while he's getting that worked out. Chuck posted up a quick pull with his car. Very nice. Cal's asking, how do you feel about the Whipple 3.8 on a stock Hellcat block? Is it too much? Well, yeah, It kind of is. It's a fantastic blower. First of all, let me just get this out of the way. The Whip 3.0 and the IHI 3.0 are very similar in design. Both of them twin screw. They're just both really good superchargers. All right, so taking nothing away from them, but remember that all you got to do is pulley up your 2.4, and you can make all the power you can realistically use on the street with that 2.4. Again, deep into the high 800, 900 horsepower to the rear wheel on a dyno jet, at the flywheel, easily making 1,000 horsepower with these things. You still have to use E85 if you decide you want to really make big boy power, so to speak, right? So just doesn't make a lot of sense. Where I love the Whip 3.8, 3.0, and the IHI 3.0 is if you have a stroker combination. They work extremely well in that area. It's a lot easier to tune. It seems to play a whole lot nicer than the Whip 4.5. And it's, like I say, a completely different redesigned unit, makes a wicked amount of power. If you're looking for all-out performance and you're building a race car, then yeah, you're going to want to go with one of those units. The Whip would be my first choice. Not that there's anything wrong with the IHI, it's just it's a kind of a known technology. Well, so is the IHI in a way. But for the street, for a car, for anything that you're going to do on the street, is stock internals or built internals, it doesn't really matter. You're just not going to be able to take advantage of the power potential of that blower. Oh, Sovereign saying, yeah, the Dart didn't stay in production that long, and the Hornet's trying to take its spot, but the Hornet's taking its spot without the benefit of a Hemi stablemate. Chuck saying, broom. Oh, Chuck said he's been lucky enough to drive original classic muscle cars like 69 Charger, GTO, Super B, etc., and they have less power than modern V8s, but they are insanely fun. And that's one of the things about old school hot rods that you don't. This is something that numbers don't translate really well for old school for today. You can't pick somebody up out of a 5.7 Charger and pop them into a 383 Roadrunner and say, okay, what are your impressions? It's completely different driving. It's a completely different way of doing business, first of all, with how those engines work. But to put this into perspective, guys, the old school muscle is muscle everywhere. You have small ports, lots of velocity, big displacement, means that you tip into the throttle like that and the car is already moving. It's trying to spin the tires. It's like Sierra, 400 small block, small port cylinder heads, performer intake manifold with a 4-barrel. The thing is always just trying to make torque, and it just runs out of breath at some point. You can't get the same feeling out of a modern Hemi. If I put heads on an old school muscle car that flowed the way that a modern small displacement Hemi head flows, it would pick up 150 horsepower like that. But it wouldn't have the tip-in throttle response that it has with those small window heads. So again, you can only compare them by numbers, and I get that, but we don't drive numbers. I've never seen the number 3 getting driven down the road before. It's a feeling. It's a sense of event. It's a sense of theater. The old schools have it. The newer cars just don't. And again, I'm not talking sideways on this. I've got a 72 GMC with a 400 sitting right there. I've got Foxy with a 351 with good flowing heads. But my wife has her 92 Camaro with a 305. Again, small port window, very high velocity. The thing has got tip-in torque that rivals the Hellcat. Dad's Garage, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Saying he sold his C7 Z06, picked up a C6 Grand Sport. Very nice. Has long tubes, X-pipe, and a tune. Picked up 37 to the rear wheel. Car is quicker than I expected. 2 questions. 1, supercharger. 2, does 11K sound right? Well, if you paid 11 grand for the supercharger, I guess is what you're asking. Because if you paid 11 grand for a C6 Grand Sport, I'm heading to where you live. I'll buy up 2 of them. Golly, and that reminds me, this idiot, I tried buying, I had a black C6 Grand Sport that was owned by the owner of a building that I lived in, and I was begging this guy, it's practically abandoned, and I begged the guy, can I buy it? There was a lien on it, there was some other issues, like, dude, I'll cover it. I just want to buy the thing, because what I was going to do with it, built trans, it's an automatic car, built trans, just a D1 head unit Pro Charger, something that would have been around 650-ish wheel horsepower, just have a really fun car. Anyway, the guy kept him-hawing on it, and then that building got flooded, and that car had 6 feet of water over the roof. Anyway, love the C6 GSs, by the way. Absolutely, but funny story about that car. Supercharger, yeah, I mean, you can. If you want to go with something mild, like what I was just talking about, like a D1 Pro Charger type setup, you can even leave the stock cam in it if you want. Injectors, pump, blower, tune. There you have it. Something around 7 or 8 pounds of boost. It'll be a lot of fun. You'll pick up about 140 horsepower, and it'd just be a neat little car to play around with on the street. Yeah, you probably would be looking at around 11K for that whole system. But a really fun car, though. I'm telling you, it. And with that type of a supercharger, it just keeps ripping on the big end, where the Vet does its best work. BCP saying, you got to coax it. I love it. Great visualization of the initial throttle response difference between Hellcat and Scat Pack. So here's the thing. I caught a lot of shade back in the day when I wasn't shitting on the Hellcat, but what I was just being honest with my assessment of the driving impressions of one car versus the next. Now, a lot of guys at that point in time were just Hellcat or nothing. It's like everybody else was just these peasants running around in lookalike cars. And it was one of those things where I was like, guys, you don't understand what I'm talking about. When you're talking to the guy that drives 1,000 horsepower cars, bragging about the 700 horsepower car, when I'm giving a whole lot of love to a 500 horsepower car, you kind of see where I'm going with that. So yeah, it's just like I say, it's a completely different way of doing business. It's hard to really compare the two, but when you do, and for the first half of that gas pedal, the Scat Pack's got it. Plus, I'm kind of a Scat Pack fan anyway. Kind of should have bought a Scat Pack instead of my SRT. It's a different story. For what I was doing with the car, but I appreciate that. Hey, Mile High, thank you very much. Saying howdy, B. Nice to finally catch you live. The 426 stroker is finally done. Very nice. Just finished it up. E85 tune around 540 wheel on a Mustang dyno. Now done spending money on this one. So most of the 426s that we did put down at almost identical number. 540 was a target number. Some of them with a little bit milder cam would put down 5 1/4. And again, it just depends on which intake manifolds you're running and all of that. It can kind of go down from there. Rarely would you want to try to push them much past that. So I think you are in just the right spot, that 540 horse to the rear wheel with that 426. It represents about 140-ish horsepower over stock. Well, it depends on, let's call it 125 over stock. So it's a lot like having a positive displacement supercharger all the time on a like a low boost 392 scenario. A lot of fun. You're in the perfect power spot for that thing too, and you're right where you need to be in terms of durability as well. So very fun car, and one of my favorite combinations when you put together a really properly set up 426 in these cars, when you're not trying to make a just blast amount of money at these things, that's a really, really fun car to drive. So congratulations on that. Sovereign saying, no doubt about it, the Hellcat was designed really well. So there was a car that really pushed me over the edge to get a Hellcat. So we had a customer that had taken their car to another shop. That's usually how these stories start, I know. But we had a customer that took his car to another shop. That other shop did some work to the car that I personally would have never advised. And so we get this car, and the fact that that thing had survived what had been done to it, I put it to you like that, I'd never seen this before in my life. The car came in, it had long tubes, it was pulleyed, upper and lower pulley, long tubes, high flow cats, stock fuel pump, and it was running a booster pump, if you can believe that. The booster pump wasn't set up right. Somehow or another, the thing still survived. It had melted. I used to have pictures of this. It had melted the substrate in these metal substrate catalytic converters. The only place this thing was exhausting exhaust gas was because it had warped the flanges on a set of long tube headers. What the hell just went up my face? They sold him a cheap set of long tube headers. The only time a cheap set of long tube headers actually probably saved this car. And it had a really bad exhaust leak, and it was leaking out from the warped flange on these freaking jacked up long tube headers. And he drove it 4 hours to the shop like that. People say, how durable is the Hellcat block? Stock Hellcat block. This guy was beating the crap out of this car going, I don't understand why it doesn't run right. It's like it's down on power. Yeah, damn right it was down on power. Anyway, we start filleting this thing and are running into problem after problem after problem. Come to find out, the booster pump wasn't hooked up right, wasn't even triggering. I mean, the list goes on and on. We get this thing done, and this was the exact same time that we were building Excessive for Racer X. And so we had clones in the shop, which was pretty cool. The only difference being that, and he wanted to stick with long tube headers, we had one with long tubes and one that didn't, one that had, neither one of them actually. Anyway, I don't know nothing about it. Anyway, that's the car that sold me. I figured if anything could have survived that. By the way, the guy gets in the car. Love this dude. This dude was such a classy cat, man. It had the best, I don't want to use his name, but he had the absolute best accent, because when he talks to you, he would talk to you like Ricardo Montalban, and he never raised his voice. He never get excited, but he would enunciate the words perfectly. And I love listening to this dude. I can listen to this. This guy could be reading me the freaking phone book for all I care. And I would listen to the guy talk because he spoke to you. And when he spoke to you, when he would get excited, he would whisper almost. He would whisper yell. And he had the best, anyway, love this dude, his family, gorgeous family, by the way. But the guy, just the way the guy would talk, but when he would get behind the wheel of that car, you would never know it, because dude knew 2 pedal positions. Stopped, and to the floor, baby. And anyway, love this dude, man. Absolutely love this guy. And he loved the car afterwards. And so anyway, if you ever wondered why I really did start to look into Hellcats, it was because of that car. I figured if it could survive this guy, then it could survive anything I'd ever put it through. So, oh, Red Dog saying Red Dog is also red line red. Very nice. The fastest color. And that's not for nothing. So, the fastest stock blower car was my car's clone. That car went heavily modified, but still stock blower. That car went 857. The fastest Demon, also redline red, was Ray's Demon version. It was the Revlon Demon. Which in as delivered trim with the seat out, because that's part of as delivered, but with the seat out on the stock NT05s went 977. And then mine, which was the fastest stock blower 93 octane, or stock boost 93 octane, I should say. So I got stats. Chuck saying NA and Supercharged, two completely different platforms for sure, and in driving character. Siren saying send some prayers up for Racer X. Yep. My man's going to be drinking a lot of vitamin C and vitamin D rich mixtures of things. J. Cole saying, what is your opinion of the Durango RT all-wheel drive as a fun family vehicle? My wife is thinking of one. Love them. Matter of fact, the Durangos, we used to love getting Durangos in at the shop because they're just fun vehicles and never had any issues with any of them. In fact, of all of the types that would come through, I think the Durango was one that had the least amount of actual like head scratching issues. They're always, now they're more basic combinations, but they're always really nice. Red Dog saying red line does change hues based on the environment. Yes, it does. And again, Dad's Garage, thank you very much, man. Let's see, saying reputable shop. Oh, about that number, yeah. Someone saying, Dad's Garage is super chat. Yes. Our folks is in saying, hey, Mason, hey, chat. Hope everyone's having a great night. Same to you, my friend. Dad's saying 6-speed too, by the way. Very nice. That'd be a fun car. I will say this, though. Make sure that you're running a sticky tire on that thing. My C5 which was a heavily cammed LS6, would still wall hunt a little bit on the highway. So, in my opinion, if it's going to be a fair weather only car, run a drag radial on the back of that thing, just for safety's sake. Chuck saying the 446 pack and his good friend's Charger is freaking badass. I don't care what the numbers are. And that's the thing. Even back then, nobody got wrapped up in numbers the way that they do today. And this is back in the heyday of drag racing, okay? It was like every town had at least one drag strip. And on the street, the 440, such a hard engine to beat. And on paper, it's like the worst case scenario of putting together a big block. It's got heads they got decent sized valves, but small port windows. They don't flow a lot. But what the car has is a ton of port velocity. And it's the reason why they did so well in terms of sales in comparison to a Hemi. They were just such superior street engines And it's also why they did so well, even when you compared them to like 454 cars, which have much better flowing cylinder heads. They don't have the feel that the 440 would have. It's just the way that it's just different ways of getting to a performance level. Performance means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And keep in mind that 440 never evolved. It was put into everything. It was a truck engine. It was a generator engine. It was the motorhome engine. It was a race car engine. It was an everything engine. And there wasn't anything really separating one 440 from the next, save for, camshafts and compression ratios. That would really be about it. Sovereign saying hanging out with Chuck. Yeah, they would be awesome. Sovereign saying, hey, what's up, Marfos? Chuck saying, he always picks on me because I walk past his exotic right to the Charger when he invites me to drive. We're hanging out. And I would do the same thing. I'm not, unless it were a Countach. And that's just because I'm a Cold War kid. But I am not I'm not an exotic guy. I'm just Pantera. Yeah, I mean, I can see myself getting all. In fact, it's another one of the cars that I didn't really get away. I tried buying, and the guy wouldn't take the offer. But anyway, come to think of it, that car was red too. But never have been an exotics guy, honestly. I just, people talk Lambos, the newer stuff, and I'm more of a Mura guy than and a Countach guy. Still kind of the same family-ish, the early Lambos versus the newer stuff. And again, Mile High, thank you, buddy. Peace. We live in great times when Scat Pack is for peasants. Well, that's the thing. I mean, these Hellcat guys you just got this sense that, they were just, real fart sniffy about the way that, they would talk about Scat Pack. Oh, you ran an 1150, that's nice. Meanwhile, I would go sniping after Hellcats in my SRT, which really got underneath the skin of some of these guys. In fact, fun fact, again, so one of the very first times I took that car to the drag strip was at a Mopar Fest. The first time that car ran an 11-second pass was against a Hellcat that I clowned. And it was funny because it was nowhere to be found. That car, the person driving it was not very in tune with their car. Anyway, long story short, that car had a couple of kills, actually 3 or 4 confirmed Hellcat kills on the track. Now, obviously, it was tire and driver reasons, but still, it was funny. So anyway, but yeah, you would get these guys acting like that, and it was just real frustrating. Let's just put it that way. Oh, Doc saying that the C6 that was built for Glenn had F1A94 that he picked up, used, set of fuel injector connection, 1300s, and some other goodies. Car made awesome power. Just had to keep it straight, and that's the thing, man. You gotta be careful with those things. I know that. Like I say, my Z06 would get interesting on the street. Let's just put it to you that way, with like a set of all seasons on the back of it. And it was motor only. Chuck say, my Scat was close to 60 grand, not exactly a peasant car. That's my point. And that's the other thing, is that it was weird. The way that those guys would talk about the Scat Pack, it was like, well, when you grow it was just kind of a weird existence. Like I say, there was a time where you get kind of turned off by Hellcats. And again, I would go literally Hellcat hunting with my SRT. Oh, Doc saying Glenn was in his, including cost of the car, around 42 grand. Yeah. So I'm saying Scat's MSRP around 42 something. I think base Scat's right now, like a Scat Pack core would be like around 45 or 47 maybe now. Chuck saying depends on your option package. Yeah. Times have changed from 2 years ago. Very true. Car saying when I bought my 1320 in 2020 Rona days, power dollars were still a thing, and yeah, that's a big deal back then. Coons Dodge was in Virginia was selling Hellcat Challengers for 50 grand. Yeah, I remember those days. In fact, they it was 54 grand would get you a 6-speed base model Hellcat down here. And I actually kind of thought about that at one point. Doc saying, booster pump almost killed a Corvette I did once. I refuse to use them, and if someone wants me to tune with one, you have to sign a release. So, I cannot put into words how much I cannot stand booster pump systems. And for you guys that aren't aware of what a booster pump is, think of it like an amplifier for your fuel pump. It is an adjustable unit that will step up the voltage to your pump to make your pump drive harder to make more fuel pressure. Well, there's a problem with, actually there's numerous problems with that. Number one, you're relying on this contraption that is outside the realm of your normal fuel pump's range in terms of how hard you're going to drive it to create fuel pressure. But what folks aren't understanding is that these pumps fade over time. After about 5 or 6 years, you just need to go ahead and replace it, because I can promise you it's starting to lose pressure. They all do. And so even with a properly functioning booster pump, if you tune one of these cars, or any car for that matter, with a booster pump, what was once okay and passable and serviceable, at some point it will not be. And anyway, this one wasn't hooked up right, and it had never worked properly. So yeah, booster pump. I know guys that have hung their world on that little contraption working, and in essence what it is you program it. You have to run a vacuum / boost line from the car to the unit. In some cases there'll be a Hobbs switch. In other cases there was one version where you could hardline it, if I remember correctly, and you have, with X amount of boost, it would step up the voltage, X amount of volts, for example. All the way up to, in some cases, like 23 or 24. It's just it's a bad idea. Chuck saying, newer Hellcats here are 90 grand. Have fun with that payment. Yeah, no kidding. Oh, Doc Diff hanging out with Dad's garage. Sovereign Russian accent? No, not at all. My dude was from Mexico City. And I mean, my dude was just super cool. I mean, this guy, I mean, dude, if you were to put him, Ricardo Montalban, and the most interesting man in the world in a room together, dude, I mean, that would be like the cool factor. Just it would go freaking sub-zero. It'd be so awesome. Red Dog, thank you very much. Saying thanks for what you do. Nice to get together with everyone and talk about Mopars and cars in general, but mostly Mopars. That's usually what I'm talking about. I'll sneak in a little GM or a little bit of Ford here and there. Speaking of Ford, golly. There's like a 5 minutes in hell for whoever put, I'm talking about Foxy right now, whoever designed Ford V8 engines to have a timing cover that also doubled as a water pump spacer, because if you get a leak in that gasket, it's not like a Chevy where you just walk up to it, it's 4 bolts, take the water pump off, put a new water pump on, 4 bolts, and you're done. No. When you get a leak in your timing cover, you have to remove the balancer, the whole front engine accessory drive, the balancer. The cover's got to come off. And it's like, why? It's terrible. It's a job. It should be a 35-minute job that turns into like forever. It'll be like a 3-day thing for me to get this thing knocked out. This will be one of those times where I may even green wrench this thing. And I've got to put a water pump on the Camaro, and the Jeep's got a leak too. So I got cooling problems over here. But again, thank you, Red Dog. J392 said, I had the Countach on the wall as a kid. I did too, the white one. Kevin's got a good question. Kevin's asking, do you think it's worth porting the snout of the Hellcat supercharger and put the bigger throttle body on it and tune it, of course? So here's what I found. This is my own discovery when I went through this whole discovery process with the Hellcats. To answer your question, first and foremost, no, I don't think so at all. Not if you're at stock boost. If, on the other hand, you have really, and I mean really dialed up boost on the car, you might see a slight improvement. We did an experiment with my car, which is a stock boost 93 octane combo Hellcat. We took my car, I bought a ported stock throttle body. So not a big improvement, but we're just trying to see if we could see any improvement, like anything, right? Didn't make any difference on my car. We then took that same throttle body and put it onto a 275 upper pulleyed red eye, which I believe would make around 18 pounds of boost, running on E85. So larger throttle body, bigger supercharger, spinning faster, clearly making more power than my car, but running the stock throttle body. And the idea was, okay, well, let's see if this thing will make more power or not. And we did the testing at a drag strip. And in this case, the idea was if it goes faster, then it makes more power. On that red eye, it picked up maybe a consistent few hundredths of a second. So not a big jump. But here's the weird thing. The snout on that IHI 27 had a small, just the slightest of a smaller opening than my 2.4 had. Which was weird because I'm real specific in particular with how I mount throttle bodies and make sure that they're perfectly centered in everything, because it makes a difference. It's part of like the blueprinting process of putting one of these things together. And I was so overwhelmingly particular with how I put that throttle body on that car, and I noticed that it was different. I had to put a lot more work into it to get it to center properly. And the car went slightly faster. But I mean, just by the most minute amount of time, right? So if you decide that you want to go with a ported snout and a bigger throttle body, couple of things, you are going to have to get it tuned. You are going to have to change the table of the throttle body airflow, because my car, without changing that table, did have a slight surge, even with a slightly larger throttle body. So you will have to adjust the table, just bump it up by like 5%. It would probably solve the surge. But I didn't bother to make any changes. I was just going for swap one. Let's see how it runs. Was even looking at data. I was data logging everything, and it just, like I say, the car didn't go any faster. So if you do decide to get it done, the more pulley ratio you have thrown at your car, the bigger the gain. If you don't have any pulley at the car and you're running stock pulley ratios, Don't worry about it. Just make sure it's centered. Ryan, thank you very much, man. Ryan says, love the show. I've learned a lot. Keep it up. I recently added JLT intake, BBK, 85mm throttle body, and Flowmaster FlowX cat back. Prefer the sound over stock. Do you recommend a tune after that Diablo quality? So let me get back into this. JLT intake, don't need a tune for that. BBK 85mm throttle body, don't need a tune for that. Although, getting back to what I was just saying, make sure that it's centered on your intake manifold. Make sure there's no lip, in other words. Flowmaster FlowX, no, you do not need to worry about a tune with those modifications. Although, I would say that a tune will help the combo just in general, especially on the transmission side. But you're okay with what you've got there. And Diablo, so if you don't have anybody around you that can tune, and you're going to get an email tune from like Jay Green or OST or somebody like that, yeah, Diablo's fine. Hemi Fever is another guy that uses Diablo. Actually, now that I think about it, OST uses HP tuners. I almost said SCT. Thinking about Fords there for a minute. But yeah, it's perfectly fine. It's just a different dialect of the same language. So I wouldn't get a canned tune. Like I wouldn't get the Diablo tune. I would get an actual tune from a reputable tuner on like a Trinity handheld or something like that. But thank you very much, Ryan. I appreciate the support, man. Hang on, let me get back. But thank you very much. Charles is scrolling back up. Chuck said, the thing with the 69 Charger is the character. There's no mellow mode. No, there's not. And that's a symptom of having a ton of port velocity. As soon as you hit the throttle, you are moving. And that's something that just does not translate. When we're talking about old school big blocks and the way that they drive, even if you're talking about a stroked modern Hemi of the same displacement, they will not give you the same driving experience that the old school small port window big blocks will give you. It doesn't, and I've driven them, and I'm telling you, the 440 cars, just like Chuck was saying, let me give you an example. So you're in a 440 car, and let's say this 440 car's got like 354 gears, automatic car. And like a stock size tire, you tip into the throttle like this, and you have wheel spin. Like it'll just hang on the converter. It's just they're so much fun. But it's a completely different driving experience. Someone saying Lambo Mura is rare. Yeah, it is. Wolf saying gets irritating here in 392 guys think they're building a better Hellcat for less money. The thing is that what a lot of guys don't remember is that it's not the engine, it's the transmission, it's the operating system, it's everything else that's attached to the Hellcat that is also so good. If you want to build a faster car, it would be tough to build a faster car than a Hellcat than it would be to just trade in your existing car on a like condition, same year Hellcat. Chuck saying boosted pumps are a waste of money. Yes, sir, they are. Doc saying got the same problem with the daily 5.9 Dodge Magnum, that the timing cover is leaking coolant drop at a time. Water pump needs to be replaced, so I'll be doing that next weekend. Parts will be here Tuesday. I don't know, man. You want to come down here and knock out the Fox body and the Camaro. The Camaro needs a water pump. Fox body needs that timing cover done. And then the Jeep has a coolant leak, which pisses me because it wasn't that long ago that I had to pull the whole front of that thing apart to put the radiator in. So, Yeah, good stuff. But again, Ryan, thank you very much, man. Yeah, I think you just answered my question, well, part of it. Awesome, thank you. Sarah saying, hit that like and subscribe button. Yes. If you're watching and you haven't subscribed to the channel, give me a subscribe. It's free. It doesn't hurt anything. It definitely does help the channel. A lot more than you might think. Kevin's saying, well put. Oh, about porting the snout. I was more looking for the sleeper status and saying it's stock for Mexico runs. Yeah, I mean, you can. Again, it's just, there's that damn skeeter again. It's January. By the way, for some of you guys that are newer to the channel, during the summertime when I used to do this in my garage, we'd have a skeeter body count, and so I forget what our record was, like 14 skeeters in one night or something. I think was our record. So anyway, that sent back to hell where they came from whence they came. Red Dog saying Hemi Fever. Hemi Fever's who tunes a lot of Moe's trucks. Speed Freak said, if I was building a modern muscle two-wheel drive pickup, what would you go with and what setup to run nines? Damn, talk about a tough question. So I would, if I wanted to run nines and I just wanted to get out there and run nines, sorry about the bug assault. If y'all know what the bug assault gun is, it's hysterical. It's a gun that shoots rock salt or regular table salt. If I was building a truck to go nines, what would I do? The trucks are kind of funny, but it's not hard to run nines in a truck. So I would say probably a 426 stroker, a 440 stroker, car block, one of my cams with a sniper intake, 392 gears with, I don't think you'd have to build the trans, but you probably would have to go with probably a 4,500 RPM stall converter. And I would have obviously long tubes and everything else. And that setup alone, I know will run low tens. And then I would probably tickle it with a 200 shot on the big end, maybe a 250 shot, just to carry mile an hour on the big end. So that would be what I would do with it. Chuck saying, have a great weekend, B, and everyone. You too, Chuck. Have a good one, brother. And Sovereign is saying, see you later, Chuck. So, but that would be my kind of a quick recipe to run nines. I would just kill it with displacement, really, would be my goal. And, of course, weight reduction is the big part of that. But yeah, so anyway, getting back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, looking forward to bringing you guys the data on these tires. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a lot of fun because I'm trying to find a tire for you guys that will work for your Scat Packs and your Hellcats. Good daily tire, something that's safe, something that will take power, but something that will also be a good overall tire that won't break the bank, something that's easily commercially available, and something that I, at least in the reviews that I've seen, and this thing has been compared to every one of the higher end tires that's out there. And it's done well. Even if it doesn't win, it still fares extremely well, and it always got the nod for wet weather performance. So that's why we're going with these. So again, looking forward to getting you guys the data on that. The runs will look a lot like what I did with the Nitto Tri-5R drag radials. I think that in terms of outright performance, obviously those are going to offer better traction, but in real world application of power, I think these things are actually going to probably be a little bit better, and they fit the rim better, and I don't have to worry about them rubbing on anything the way that I did with those. So absolutely can't wait to get you guys the data on that. As far as when the next time that Little Miss Revlon is going to hit the track, we've got Moparmageddon that's already been rescheduled once. It looks like it is probably going to have to get either rescheduled or potentially canceled if we get hit with rain again. And it's just going to be one of those things where you can only kick the can on these things so far down the road before you've just got to go ahead and scrap it. So if we get some opportunities with some really clean air, really good weather, I will get out there and I'll try to cover a number to try to reclaim my number one spot, although I just don't see it happening down here this year. Mopar Jim's done a wonderful job with his car, and he legit has that 10:06 record, which trumps my 10:08. But I will say this: I have kind of already run a number with my car this year. For you guys that may not know, the car ran earlier this year. The car ran a 1013 in what was in essence almost slack DA. It was negative 200 was what the car ran it in. Now, for any of us that are racing, we look at negative 200 plus 200. It's like, that's within the noise. Like, it's hard to hit a 0 day, right? But if you try to correct off of 200 feet, you're not going to change the outcome of what the car ran. And in that condition, the car ran a 1013. And so and let me tell you the reason why that number is important. Back in the day, there were some numbers for records that were hard to beat. The first one was the first record that was set, which was a 1036, if I'm not mistaken. Might have been a 1034. And when that car ran a 1032, I'm sorry. The next place car was a 1034. My car, I ran a 1037. So I was in third place for stock blower, stock boost, and 93 octane. From there, the record started to devolve. And the record that nobody, I think, thought would ever get touched was a record that was a 1013. That was the number that, I think it stood for a couple of years. Nobody could touch it. And when I went 1012, I took over the spot in number one. And then, not long after that, I went a 1010. And again, this was at a point in time where there was really only a few of us left that were running or really even paying attention to running cars with the configuration that we were running them in, which was, again, stock boost, 93 octane, no race gas blend, which is to say that the cars are not tuned to run on race gas. They're tuned to run on 93 octane pump gasoline. But the 1013 number was like the God number. Like, if you could get better than a 1013, you've done something, right? Lots of DA. I mean, these cars, it took all the density altitude in the world to run these numbers. And I ran that number in what you would consider to be a much higher density altitude than other guys had run the number before. And so I can look at that with a certain amount of pride. I mean, I literally was able to run the number that nobody else could run in super deep DA, a number that nobody thought was going to get eclipsed. And then it took Jim and me to get out there and do it. And we beat it. And that was really cool. But that 13 number was like, ain't nobody going to run a 1013. And it just blew everybody's mind when, we were able to get out there and do that. So, but I was able to run the number in a density altitude that it would have just been just absolutely out of the question for a car, one of these types of cars, one of these types of setups, to run that kind of number in those conditions would have just balderdash. You're cheating. You got pulleys on it. You're hitting it with a 50 shot or something. So that's why I've kind of already run the number that I wanted to run. And I can be real happy with that. And I like I say, I don't know that we're going to get an opportunity this year to really capture air. Legion of Demons is going on today, or was going on today. They had really clean air. That might be one of the few times we get air like that this year. So again, I've kind of run a number. I could actually put the street setup back on the car and just be a spectator at my own event and be just as happy. So assuming that it does go through this time around. Um, Ryan saying, I recently discovered but have binge watched for hours of videos dating years back. I have no delusions of building a better Hellcat. I just love modifying and personalizing my car. Yeah, listen, that's the thing. And again, don't take it like anybody's saying you're trying to build a better Hellcat. Again, we built a lot of supercharged 392 combinations. And one of my favorite combinations is 392 low boost D1 race intercooler through the automatic on a Mustang dyno, makes about 530, 540 horse to the rear wheels. Not quite as much as a Hellcat, but a completely different driving impression. And they run great, especially on the highway. And one of the cool things about that combination is that it's got usable torque. It's not, you're not trying to shred tires just like at partial throttle the way that a geared Hellcat would be. And so it's a lot of fun. And also one of the more potent combinations is a 392 with a small cam. It might be a little bit counterintuitive, but if you haven't worked with Hemis for very long, they are really, really good at making small cams look incredibly good. One of my my smallest camshaft for a 392 doesn't even have a lobe. It literally makes the car act like it is just larger in displacement. It makes power everywhere. And that particular cam, I know for a fact, has gone tens. And it's a very potent package that you'd never, ever see coming. That's a fun combination. So, yeah, get out there and have fun with it. That's the most important thing. Oh, J392 saying a lot of guys like Firehawks. I remember that. Sovereign saying it's been crap weather here in California. My man, that is absolutely true. Jay saying a lot of rain. Yeah, rain, wind, and a lot of downed trees. Oh, and potholes everywhere. Yeah, so many potholes. Pothole recognition. J392 saying on the 2024 suspension adjust to it. So I'm saying thanks for catching up the likes. Oh, no, average. Oh, hey, what's up? No, saying hanging out with Ryan on his 5.7 stock with tune. I didn't gain horsepower ET. I didn't see gains with the BBK until I opened up my intakes. Now that's when I saw ETs. Yeah, and that's on an NA. Yeah. And Jay saying, thinking of keeping the 392 NA. I would probably keep it NA if it were mine. And I've ported a lot of intake manifolds, and yeah, you definitely need it. The thing is, okay, so here's the deal: the 392 intake manifold has a bit of a flaw with the snout that it will not flow much more than an 80 millimeter throttle body will allow. So that's kind of one of the issues with it. But with that, guys, I have got to wrap it up. Make sure I'm catching up with all of you guys. Be on the lookout. It'll be a few weeks, though, before I get you guys the tire testing. I am looking forward to bringing this test to you guys again because it's something that's really kind of near and dear to my heart because I've been harping on the drag radial thing for so long. But again, with availability being kind of shoddy, the expense of the things, quality control being suspect at best, and with some of these newer tires hitting the market, I think it's about time to give them a shot and maybe take another look at them. So I'll be bringing that to you guys here pretty soon. And if we've got decent weather, we got the track event coming up. But again, it's just going to be really hard to it's going to be really hard to say if and when the car even hits the track again this year, especially Houston Raceway Park shutting down at the end of March. We've got an extremely limited window here, so it's kind of what we're up against. Mama Nature is kind of doing her own thing. So with that, guys, though, I am going to wrap it up. Guys, love each and every one of y'all. Would not do this without you. Definitely consider subscribing if you haven't already. Got a ton of content on the channel. Lots of ride-along videos. Lots of how-tos, my thoughts, all kinds of stuff going way back in time. Some of those early videos are unwatchable, but you get to watch me learning how to sit in front of a camera and talk to myself and you guys. But with that, that is it for the show. Guys, get out there and do something cool for somebody. Chances are they need it way more than you know. And with that, that's a wrap. We'll catch y'all on the next one. Thanks again, guys. Adios.